Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, in town on a rare state visit to France, I speak to Nigeria's Minister of Trade and Investment about her administration's plans to woo more private funding into plans to grow the African giant's economy. But soothing troubled minds will be no easy task. Also, after the distancing of Chad and Senegal from Paris, it now looks like France will have to scale down its military presence across Africa. Chad had been France's last stronghold in the Sahel after troops were recently forced out of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, very few women pursue scientific careers. Some of the country's leading scientific veterans are trying to change that by encouraging more teenage girls to consider careers in STEM. Well, for the first time in 2 decades, a Nigerian leader has visited France on a state visit. President Bola Tinubu has been in the country this week on a bid to boost ties and attract investment with Paris. On its part, France has increasingly been cozying up to Anglophone Africa over the years as its ties with some French-speaking parts of the country grow increasingly strained. With me today is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Nigeria's new Minister of Trade and Investment, very kindly squeezing in the time to come and speak to me on the set today. Minister, thanks very much for coming in. Now, first of all, let's have a quick rundown. What do you think's been achieved by this trip to France? Because boosting ties, attracting investment, the economy was really at the top of the agenda.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The state visit was a very productive one. It wasn't just a talk shop. There were several MOUs signed. So President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made known the priorities of Nigerian administration in areas of energy, in areas of technology, in areas of arts and culture, in areas of solid minerals. We went through a full list and what France has on offer in supporting Nigeria. We also met with the private sector and had very fruitful discussions, frank discussions on what would be needed to attract more businesses and to retain the businesses that currently operate in the Nigerian climate.
So when you're talking about frank discussions with the private sector, I'm imagining that the very complex macroeconomic context of Nigeria at the moment must have come up. You know, we're talking infrastructure, we're talking corruption, we're talking foreign currency, we're talking the even petrol. What has, and a lot of, we've seen actually over the last year or so, over a dozen major multinationals leave the country. What has been done since President Bola Tinubu came in to actually try and address any of the factors that have left those who'd already had a foothold in Nigeria decide to walk away?
Yeah, so the decisions for companies to leave didn't happen in a day. So that's the first thing. And the situation had been progressively deteriorating. So on the first day of work, basically, President Tinubu removed the fuel subsidy that had been draining the economy's resources, immediately went to work, the new central bank governor, on reuniting the foreign exchange windows and making sure that those reforms, trying to target a very stubborn inflation issue, high interest rates. So those reforms have been ongoing for the last sort of 12 to 16 months with gradual success. Now, it's always a slow recovery process for any economy. In the meantime, we've been facing regulatory reforms, really tackling them. I've basically been working on ease of doing business for more than 6 years now and focusing on the challenges that French businesses have spoken, because I've related very well with the Franco-Nigerian Chamber of Commerce. And I know several French companies, the regulatory challenges, the trade facilitation challenges, the infrastructure challenges, nothing new or peculiar to French businesses. These are reforms that we have to do to put the Nigerian economy on track. And we've been working on them.
But when it comes, what specifically have you got in the pipeline to tackle the issue of inflation? Because that's not only going to hurt potential investors, but it is hurting Nigerians themselves. I mean, we're talking about multinationals fleeing, but we're also seeing a lot of top talent, Nigerian talent, fleeing because the entire environment is just too much for them to handle.
So the inflation is a symptom of the issues that had been, the malady that had been affecting the economy for a while, and it is going to take some time. What is more priority is to focus on supporting productivity and competitiveness, focusing on exports, leveraging the AfCFTA, and making sure that Nigerian businesses are supported to be export-led, to get ready, trade facilitation, regulatory reforms, transparency, efficiency of public service delivery. These are the granular things that have to be done to make sure that Nigerian businesses can compete.
So the AfCFTA, that's the African Continental Free Trade Area, you worked on that in some capacity.
Yes.
So how do you see that specifically addressing any of the economic issues that we see in Nigeria at the moment?
So it's basically an opportunity, especially now with the foreign exchange. Nigerian local manufactured goods are more competitive in the sense that they're cheaper than imports. And it's also a good time to look to prioritizing exports, to trade. So a lot more emphasis on trade, because that would deliver the foreign exchange supply that is so desperately needed in the economy. Now, this work is not taken in silo. You have to make sure that the businesses are export ready. You have to work on the trade reforms, the customs, the single window, all the things that businesses have been talking about for the last few years. We're already working on them and trying to fast track those things to move the economy in the right direction. It's a painful time, no doubt. But when you work in a systemic manner to deliver results and you measure them and you engage with stakeholders, then basically what gets measured gets done.
But when you're talking about businesses, are there enough? Basically, I'm trying to get at the need to diversify the economy. When you're looking for investment, is it still very much kind of primary resources, oils, trying to attract, the kind of totals back into Nigeria? Or is there actually anything tangibly being done to further diversify the kind of businesses that are running in the country to create things that can be exported?
So the Nigerian economy is quite diverse. What is not diverse is our foreign exchange earnings. So we basically export mainly crude oil. But the economy itself is quite diverse. Total is very much, in fact, Total just committed $10 billion to renewable energies in Nigeria. What we're doing is prioritizing agriculture, export-led. We need to work on market access around the continent and to other markets like the EU, working on standards, making sure, and that's where French companies coming to farm in Nigeria. We have a lot of arable land. We have a lot of agro businesses. We export cocoa. We export leather products. We export sesame seed. We export soy. So a lot of exports that the world wants. We need to scale all that. And so the enabling environment, the trade facilitation, the standards, the national quality infrastructure, those are the bricks and mortar, basically. And when you talk about enabling, you have to deliver to make sure that that scale can happen. We're very competitive in services. So Nigerian population is young, is tech savvy. We're doing very well in fintech, in edutech, in a lot of other, in that ecosystem. We're very strong in the creative sector. Those are services that can easily be exported. Yes, a number of Nigerians have left the country because it's been quite tough. And basically, are we done?
I mean, unfortunately, we are running out of time, but please do finish your thought.
I was just going to say that making sure that they can earn money even from Nigeria. So outsourcing services, that's another area. And services for exports, basically, is one of the areas where Nigeria will take a lead, because that's where we can play to our strength of our young tech-savvy population.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jumoke Udowole, Nigeria's Minister of Trade and Investment, here in France on a rare state visit in a bid to boost ties between the two countries. Well, staying with Nigeria, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has been reappointed for a second term as the head of the World Trade Organization. The Nigerian economist first took up the post of Director General at the WTO in 2021, when she became the first woman and first African to take on the role. This time around, she was the only candidate in the race and was all but assured another 4 years in the job. And as mentioned, with Nigeria's Minister for Trade and Industry, France's clout in Africa took another blow this week with Chad's decision to end military cooperation with the former colonial power. Chad had been France's last foothold in the Sahel after its troops were recently forced out of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Not long after Jamina's announcement, Senegal's president, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, told French media that he would close its military bases in the country and envisioned a different kind of relationship with Paris. Caitlin Kelly brings us more from Dakar.
Speaking to French media yesterday, President Diomaye Faye called for the closure of French military bases here in Senegal, 2 of which are on the outskirts of Dakar. But the president stopped short of calling for a withdrawal of the 350 French troops who are in the country. He cited Senegal's partnership with China as an example of the kind of relationship that he wants. China is the biggest trading partner with Senegal, particularly when it comes to things like investment, but they have no military presence here. These comments are not particularly surprising given the policies that Diomaye Faye was elected on earlier this year, the promise to reassert Senegal's sovereignty and move away from any dependence on foreign powers, particularly like France.
Does Senegal have a military base in France? No. Therefore, it's normal that France doesn't have a military base in Senegal.
France support us, and they're here for the Africans. They're here, and they help us. If there's another country that would try to invade Senegal, France would react.
We're independent, we're sovereign, we have money, we have natural resources, we have it all. What we have to do is collaborate.
This comes as Senegal marks its 80th anniversary of the Tiaroy massacre, a dark event in the country's chapter in which repatriated West African troops were shot down by French troops in Tiaroy, a camp just on the outskirts of Dakar. In December 1944, the riflemen had shown up to collect their pensions for their contribution fighting with the Allies against the Nazis when they were gunned down. And this event has been pretty much seen as something unspoken, as something silenced by history here in Senegal. It was only in 2014 that President François Hollande even acknowledged what had happened. And then this year, President Macron, only a few days ago, called the event a massacre for the first time, which is being considered significant here in Senegal as the country reevaluates its history with the ex-colonial power.
Caitlin Kelly there for us in Dakar. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, very few women pursue scientific careers. Now, that's in part because of limiting gender stereotypes and a lack of role models. Some of the country's leading scientists are trying to broaden students' horizons, though, by encouraging more teenage girls into science. Our team sent us this report.
At the Institute for Biomedical Research, it's Student Visit Day.
Bonjour, bienvenue.
Professor Jean-Jacques Muyembe, a renowned virologist in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is sharing his experience and expertise with young students interested in his discipline. The veteran scientist is also hoping the exchange can encourage more female students to follow in his footsteps.
In our recruiting, we make an effort to give priority, if necessary, if the standards are the same, to women.
Few women pursue higher scientific learning in DR Congo, where only 10% of female university students study STEM subjects. Marie-Claire Yonju is a microbiologist and a trailblazer. In this shipping container, which she transformed into a laboratory, lie the results of 50 years of her research into cassava, work for which she received no grants nor funding. Despite her own professional struggles, Yonju is eager to pass on her knowledge.
We encouraged her to continue her studies. She's just enrolled at university and is now working with us.
The 70-year-old still teaches at the University of Kinshasa. She says her greatest source of pride is having opened up a way for young women in science.
Back in our day, there were 16 of us in the 4th year. But in the 6th year, we were only 4. And when I see that the number of girls has now increased, I'm really pleased.
Gender stereotypes and cultural expectations surrounding marriage are still obstacles for many Congolese women considering careers in STEM.
Most of the teachers who taught me at college were men. So it's a bit rare to find women working in this field. I would like to be one of the women who masters this field.
Today, Marie-Claire Yonju always wraps up her lessons with the same slogan, a play on grammatical gender rules in the French language. The word science, she says, is a feminine word.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Your stories inspire the future. Your daily lives create the news. Your cultures, struggles and successes are at the heart of our programs. We tell the stories of those who made our planet and those who are building it. We tell the story of the world, shaped by the lives of those who live there.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.